Welcome back to the upper tier, folks. We're back here at headquarters Wrestling Mania here in Stevens Green, shooting another quick video there, giving my thoughts on the Ireland situation. Obviously playing Gibraltar tonight. Massive game now, especially on the back of that poor defeat against Greece. When you think back and you look at it, so overwhelmed by Greece, underperforming, a deeply damaging defeat as it's been described. Just the disjointment of it. And then we go into it was just a performance void of basic footballing ideas. When you think about it, they 10 days together. I think they did 2 separate camps or something like that, getting ready for this match. That Greek game would have been a key game in the group in terms of having an opportunity to get third potentially, but looking at how the Dutch situation is unravelling and stuff like that, it could have been an opportunity to even get second when you look at Greece's position in the group now. But for us, just poor. And it makes me wonder, I reflect back, like I had the benefit of living through, the 80s and the 90s and all that, and experiencing those wonderful times in Ireland where, Ireland tail end of the 80s and stuff like that was in a very, very dark place. More or less a depression and stuff like that. Families were really suffering. Money was hard to come by. Just having ESB and food was an achievement in itself at those times and stuff, And the similar, the parallels with where we are now and stuff like that. You look at, back then, the only thing we had was hope, and that hope was driven a lot of time by things we could enjoy and stuff like that. And no one, we talk about the effect that Charlton had on the country and stuff like that, and how how that's the success of that football team gave so many people hope that they could survive out of this situation. Brought a wave of positivity to the country, which in turn absolutely got us on the upward trajectory. Little did we know, 15, 20 years later, that was just a house of cards that came down in kind of a false perspective. But I mean, there has been a lot of good stuff as well. I mean, foreign direct investment and stuff like that. We've become a major hub for, American social media companies and information technology companies and stuff like that is a huge part of our fabric now here in Ireland, with a lot of the bigger companies setting up here, both for attractive tax terms, but also a very educated workforce that's here as well. And that was the time back then and stuff like that, and it dragged us out of that situation. And now we find ourselves in a very similar situation. We got a housing crisis, we got a homeless crisis, people losing their homes, people can't afford to rent, people barely exist and being able to put food on their table, electricity through the roof, fuel through the roof, this cost of living crisis. So it's not quite back to those times in the 80s where people were really trying to figure out, where the next food shop came from. But people somewhat are still suffering as well as, relative to that time. And I think there's a huge part in terms of there's certain things in our life that we love. Football obviously is one of them for you guys on the channel and girls. And it gives us that bit of hope. It gives us that opportunity. It takes us away from our problems and gives us that bit of joy in our life. There's no better feeling than your country scoring a goal or winning a match, and you're there at the Aviva, or you're watching it, or you're out with a few beers with your mates, or whatever it is. That sense of togetherness, that sense of achievement, and especially with us in Ireland here, we have a very close link with the national side and stuff like that. We really feel a part of it, and that was through Jack's era and stuff like that, where he really felt that the crowd at Lansdowne at the time were a big part in how Ireland played, and they were a big part in how we beat big teams back then as well. But now you look at the situation, and there's very little to cheer about. You've got players rocking up who should, with all due respect, never wear the Ireland jersey. You've got a manager in place who was a cheap and cheerful option at the time, but was never capable of doing this job, regardless of what people think. I mean, if you look at the record, what's it, 9 wins and 33 and 4 wins and 23 competitive games, which is Absolutely shocking. And when you think about some of the losses that are there and you look at some of the wins as well, it's kind of, it flatters to deceive, let's be honest here. But I don't think, I looked at the press conference yesterday. You've James McLean there talking about reaching 100 caps, which is a fantastic achievement for any Irish player to do. Joins a very select club, a very select group of players in there. Lads who walked through walls to make sure Ireland won. Lads who put their bodies on the line to make sure we did what we could. Lads who went out and represented the average guy on the street who was struggling, who needed that hope to get through that week and that month and whatever else it was. And that's not there now. If you listen to that press conference yesterday, you've got Kenny there mumbling away, with no real accuracy of analysis or rudderless kind of, and then if you ask a hard question, Morris sent me a link from GP Productions podcast, go check him out as well, about when the hard questions are asked at a press conference, when you ask about are the players up for it, when you ask what's the plan, when you ask after 33 games should we not have a team that shows some sort of shape, that shows some sort of stability, that shows some sort of pattern of play and a kind of an identity. And when you ask those questions, you're told you're being disrespectful, which it would be for me a minimum expectation. Like 33 games in, should you not know kind of your starting 11 and your squad? Okay, you're going to get injuries and stuff like that. But we seem to, every time we go into this situation, we seem to need another hard reset. We're planning for the future. We're still blooding players, and it's quite worrying, the pattern that develops in this all the time, and the lack of performance, and the lack of the understanding from those players in understanding that when you step onto that pitch, when you put on that green jersey, for a country like Ireland, the size of this country, it means so much more. It carries a bigger weight. People hang on and clutch onto that hope of those wins and those moments. I was lucky enough. I experienced the Walkinstown roundabout. I experienced the wave of joy in this country in 88 and 90 and all that sort of stuff, the Charlton era and stuff like that. And where we were very lucky at that time as well, because we had a number of players that were playing at a very high level, and Jack did a great job convincing them to declare for Ireland. Fundamentally, we have failed in that process over the last number of years. Declan Rice, Jack Grealish, all these different players we can name. Dozens of them. Young Tom Cannon at the moment at Everton, the FA trying to convince him as well. What are we doing about that? And then we listened to Stephen talking about there's a number of players who are finding it very difficult coming into the team and stuff like that because they don't play for their clubs. And yet we see the gun kind of being put to Queeveen's head at Liverpool, being told he needs to go out and play more regular football if he wants to be picked for the Ireland side. A position that we have very good riches in at the moment. Obviously Gavin Bazunu, excellent. You seen him the other night. One of the few players that walks off that pitch with credibility. So it begs the question, well, if we have players that are at clubs and they're not playing, are they sitting back? Are they just comfortable? Are they happy to be at a club and not play? Why are they being used as an option in the Ireland side? How do you go from not playing for your club, or very low level playing for your club, to stepping on to pulling on an Irish international jersey? How does that work? Why isn't there other options? What conversations are being had with the clubs? What conversations are being had with the player? Should he be engineering a move so he gets more game time? Why isn't that happening? You look at players out there like James McLean. I mean, hats off to him on 100 caps and stuff like that, but he came on the other night. He was really, really poor. Really, really poor. He's one of the senior guys in the team now that these younger guys look to. Really, really poor. You have Adam Ida up front. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Barely kicks a ball. But yeah, gets picked. You have a constant change all the time in lineups. You have a project going on there at the moment where Stephen has gone down the road, and a lot of fans have given him time in relation to this, where he wants us to play football, not necessarily go back to the long ball tactics or all that kind of stuff. But there comes a time when you have to look at the quality of what you have available to you and ask yourself, can those players play within those strengths. And the one thing Jack was very, very good at is he very quickly recognised the strengths of the team, and he played within the strengths of those elements of that team. He didn't for 1 minute think we were Brazil. He didn't for 1 minute think we were France or Spain or Italy, and we could pass the ball around and we do this, that and the other. It was very, very direct football that suited the elements of the team that we had there. Now Stephen has come in and he wants to change things quite a lot. He wants us to play football. He wants kind of to modernise, if you like, the Ireland situation. And that's a real difficult task because quite simply, we don't have the tools. So then we have to look and go, right, let's play within our strengths. But it's this kind of, if you look at the press conferences, there's no confidence. You look at the two boys, they're slouched at the press conference. It's the last place they want to be. They know they're in for a wave of discontent and heat and stuff like that. They don't want to take it. There's a lot of mumbo jumbo. There's a lot of talk about pride in the shirt and pride in this, that and the other. Where was the pride the other night? You know, you have a lot of players walking off that pitch deflated because they know. They know what's coming. They know change is coming, and they know it's a difficult situation for the FAI because financially they may not be able to do what they want to do, or change would have happened a long time ago. So they're kind of strapped because they're dealing with the fallout from many, many years of mismanagement in that organisation, practically bringing it to the brink of financial ruin. And because of that carry on and what happened there, like obviously we haven't invested anywhere near what we should have in grassroots, so players aren't coming through as much as we thought. And not only that, it's become very, very difficult with the homegrown situation and the cost of bringing players over now to academies and stuff like that. It's not that easy anymore for Irish players to go over to England and join academies and all that kind of stuff. So it's a real difficult situation for us. It's a real bind. So then we kind of move on to the Gibraltar game, you know, and it's a tough one to talk about as well because, you know, when you look at Greece, you know, there's a team that's kind of more or less around us in the ranking, but the gulf is huge. I mean, if you look at Gavin Bazzouni, who pulled off, 3-4 absolute world-class saves the other night. So the scoreline wasn't really a reflection of the game. And we did an episode on it, the fallout from that game and stuff like that. Big thank you to everyone who watched. It's nearly on 1,000 views. And a big thank you to all the Greek fans who came in and actually gave us some feedback and kind of educated me a little bit on their players and stuff like that and how well they're doing and stuff like that. But I do preface that by remembering, we heard Brian Kerr talk about this. Greece got beaten twice home and away by the Faroe Islands. So let's not, where Greece is after doing very well, they're after getting 2 good results. I think they've 6 points, they're second in the table, they're above Holland or the Netherlands now. They're talking about qualifying as part of the top 2. And we're right down the bottom, like we're the only difference between us and Gibraltar is goal difference. So already we're staring down the barrel potentially of a campaign that's dusted. And we heard Stephen Kenny in his press conference talking about how, oh well, there's big games coming up and this, that and the other. But like, let's be honest, you know what I mean? What are we going to do? Where the France game gave us a bit of hope that we could stand up and play against these guys. Maybe sometimes in reflection when you look at that, maybe France were just playing within themselves and knew what they had to do to get done. But yeah, it's a terrible time at the moment in Irish football at international level, and for such a loyal fan base, you see it down there in the Aviva. They back the team as much as they can, they back the players as much as they can. But there comes a time. There comes a time when you can't deny the undeniable. And that's the big problem at the moment, you know. And for me, I think the FAI need to look at this situation, because I think even today, win, lose or draw, and I say that terribly because we're playing Gibraltar and I don't want to disrespect Gibraltar either as a team, but win, lose or draw today, change has to happen, and it needs to happen now. And I know he has a contract until the end of this qualifying campaign, but we can already see the writing is on the wall. We can already see that there's a lot of palaver, there's a lot of mumbo jumbo, there's a lot of talk about how we're going to do this and how we're going to do that and all, but there's no real fundamental plan and, you know, that basic football to look at an opponent and come out with a plan. We went out against Greece the other night with no real plan, you know, and they talk about, you know, Stephen talks about, oh, we had an opportunity and they scored, and in the second half we had an opportunity and they scored and all, but the reality is they were so much better than us. They played through our lines, they controlled the ball, our midfield was shambolic, Our passing was atrocious. It's a team who was together for 10 days. And you kind of ask yourself at times, would a League of Ireland 11 probably perform at a better level? And I know that's harsh to say and stuff like that, because within there is a number of players that have showed a bit of promise and stuff like that, but you get the feeling that they're just sort of held back by the process that's there at the moment with Stephen Kenny and stuff like that. And you look at it, I mean, let's be honest tonight, what are we going to see tonight? We're going to see lads deserted because of the result the other night. And you're going to see the James McLean's rolled out, you're going to see the Jeff Hendricks rolled out, all that kind of stuff, which just sets us back again. It just sets us back. And that's the truth. So, roll on tonight. Let's see how it goes. The talk is that tonight gives us an opportunity to make up for the other night. Well, it doesn't make up for the other night, because most teams, if not all teams in this table, are going to pump Gibraltar home and away. Let's be honest here. So that doesn't make up for anything. What it does is, we could go out tonight, score a few goals, get a bit of a good feel factor going, head off on the back of that. But it doesn't really change anything. It doesn't change 9 wins in 33. It doesn't change 4 wins in 23 competitive games. It doesn't change the legacy that's there. And yes, you need time to change a culture. But I just wonder. I wonder at times, are we doing the right thing? Is this the process we should be going? Is this how we should evolve? Or is winning just so much more important than that? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Roll on tonight. Hopefully the lads in green will get the win tonight. Never want to see them lose, even to the detriment of when you want change. But worrying times for the Ireland side, and I just hope those players understand the magnitude of putting on that jersey. It's so much more than football. They're carrying the hope of a nation on their backs at times. And for too long now, this Irish team has been in the wilderness, hence that's where we find ourselves in world rankings. Folks, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, drop a like, let us know your thoughts on tonight. Tough times ahead, and long may it change has to come, doesn't it? Change has to come.